I'm Dr. Ted Ninnes, and I've been teaching at the University of Waikato for about 15 years and retired in 2010. I was in the Sociology Department running that, and my background is in social science, philosophy and science. I have a Master of Arts from Dundee University, I have a Master of Science from Stirling University, and I have a PhD from Edinburgh. So these three disciplines help me to encapsulate the issues of fluoridation. Now, I've been involved in the fluoride issue for quite a long time. At Waikato University I was teaching a graduate program, and one of the subjects was contemporary issues in health and illness. And one of those contemporary issues, of course, is water fluoridation. So for the period when I was at Waikato from 1987 to now, one of my research areas has been this topic. Why is it such a controversial issue? I could address that by looking at three things. First of all, the science issue. Has science proven that fluoride is beneficial for your teeth? The science question in terms of, is it dangerous to take fluoride? And then the social science issue of why or how does the fluoride issue butt into our other social organisations? Really, to understand what fluoride's on about, you need to understand the history of it. Now, I don't have time to go back and look at it, but very briefly, the fluoride issue came up in relation to pollution from the nuclear industry in the 1940s. The Manhattan Project, fluoride is used to enrich uranium. The spill out from that process polluted a lot of the area. The farmers took the Manhattan Project people to court and won a settlement. Their cows were dying from the fluoride pollution. And then it became known that fluoride in high fluoride areas would have an effect on the teeth to strengthen them, but it would also produce fluorosis. So these issues were in the context of major industries using fluoride and producing pollution. And that fluoride pollution cannot be put into the ground or the sea easily, it's too toxic. And so, of course, putting it into the drinking water is one way of getting rid of it. But the history is really interesting because you had the big industries like the nuclear industry, you had the aluminium industry, the superphosphate industries, the dental industry, and the sugar companies all supporting fluoridation because it takes the heat off sugar, which is one of the big pollutants. It takes the heat off the pollutants who are producing this stuff because now it's seen as beneficial to your teeth. And one of the father of fluoridation, Trendley Dean, did some research 1940s and a bit earlier than that, and his research was taken as a benchmark for introducing fluoride as drinking water fluoridation. That research that he did was shown to be faulted about 20-30 years later when he admitted under oath that he had falsified the information to get that result. So now it sounds like a conspiracy theory, but it's not a conspiracy theory. It's just showing the link between fluoride and where it came from and the industrial and governmental backing for that particular way of dealing with it. I could jump now right up to New Zealand in 1953, because that's when fluoride was first utilised in New Zealand. The Hastings Project 1953 was where Hastings was fluoridated with water and Napier was used as a control. To cut a long story short, the people who ran that project claimed that it was a remarkable success, and years later, it was found why it was a success, because they had also fiddled with the data to produce that answer. And John Calhoun, who was the dental officer of Auckland, found that information out. That, of course, is never mentioned in any of the books that talk about this experiment. Now, if I can take the issue of fluoridation by itself, the argument is that fluoridation is beneficial because it produces fluoride, which somehow or other attaches to your enamel of your teeth when you drink it. And fluoride toothpaste does the same. The trouble with that argument now is that most, both pro and anti-fluoride people agree that fluoride is topical in its effect. That is, you put it on your tooth, it's not systemic, you don't drink it. And if you think about it, how can the fluoride that you drink get from in your body out and onto the enamel of your tooth? Sounds very peculiar. And I was at a debate recently, last week, with a dentist from Hamilton here, and the argument is that the fluoride from toothpaste is sufficient to give you the amount you require on your teeth, depending on how much is in your body. And the fluoridation is really a backup, so that when you drink the fluoridated water, the fluoride in that water goes into your bloodstream, and then, amongst other things, goes up into your salivary glands, and then the saliva that comes out of those glands has a small amount of fluoride in it, which keeps your teeth bathed in it, in the saliva. Unfortunately, the amount of fluoride that comes through is so tiny, it has no effect on your teeth at all. So at the same time, you're still putting it in your body, and it's going through all your organs. Blood travels everywhere. And so there are a host of related adverse health effects that have been found from drinking fluoride. So one way to deal with that is to simply block out the health issues, or to do research that's in some sense second rate, and there's a lot of that within the fluoride debate. York Report 2002, produced for the government of Britain, found that they studied about 200 or 300 peer-reviewed articles and found that there was no A-grade scientific research to show that fluoride was effective or safe. Now that's a staggering thing to say, and then we have our government spokespeople saying that the issue, the scientific issue, is settled. It's not settled, it's still very alive, and hence all the aggro that's going whenever they try to implement it. The other thing about fluoride is that if you're trying to fluoridate the drinking water, you need to have some sort of consensus about it being a good thing. And so in New Zealand, the government leaves it predominantly up to the city councils to decide whether we should fluoridate water or not. And in other countries, they make it mandatory, so that in Israel, for example, from 1975 till last month, they had mandatory water fluoridation, so it had to be done. It was illegal not to do it. Why did they turn around? Because they found that new evidence coming from Ireland, from research over there, showed, one, that fluoride is not effective in dealing with tooth decay, two, it's dangerous and linked to all sorts of illnesses, and it's unethical because you don't have the right to force medication on people. So they have now turned it around and made it by law that you must take fluoride, must not put fluoride in the water anymore. Same thing's happening now in Southern Ireland, and it happened in Hamilton here, and we heard the ruckus that was caused by that. So it's not safe, and we need more research to check why it's not safe and how it affects people. There's a whole range of disorders. But I think one of the key arguments is that people should have a say in whether they want to be medicated or not. So that fluoride should not be just put into place for everyone to drink. If you have any other prescription medicine, the first thing a doctor does is decide whether you should take it by measuring the level of those particular chemicals in your body. World Health Organization said before you fluoridate the water, you should check what the level of fluoride is in various individuals, especially children, but that is never done. And one other piece of evidence which is quite interesting is the World Health Organization has shown that from 1970 to 2010, there has been a gradual decay, a gradual drop in decay in all Western nations, irrespective of whether they fluoridate their water or not. So something is causing that drop, and it's not fluoride. So these arguments then are arguments against fluoridating the water. If people want fluoride, they can take fluoride pills. Some countries have fluoridated salt, and you can get it in toothpaste and in some other foods. So I think the argument against fluoride is strong. Whether you agree that fluoride is good or not for your tooth or teeth, it shouldn't be put into your body. It shouldn't be administered via water. And that also is much more democratic, because then people can choose whether they want fluoride in their water or not. They can buy, no doubt they'll be selling fluoridated bottled water, they do in the States. And fluoride, of course, will be in a lot of drinks that people have anyway. The ethical issue then finally is that it's just unethical to mandatorily dose people with a chemical that's not required for your health. It doesn't deal with any sort of illness that you have. It's not a nutrient, it's a toxic poison. And the argument that the dose makes the poison suggests that if you have just a little bit of it, it's okay. But if there's no measurement of how much is in your body, and because we have an epidemic of fluorosis, 40% of our population have fluorosis, white streaking of the teeth, caused by an overdose of fluoride. So I think the writing's on the wall for pro-fluoride people. Unfortunately, it quite often will take a long time before people's opinions will change. And so we just got to hope that more of the city councils like Hamilton take the initiative, listen to the full amount of evidence from a tribunal rather than a referendum, and make that decision.